This is part 2 of breaking down the Florida Grand Jury interim report. Picking up where we left off, we were talking about how COVID can cause cognitive and attention deficits, anxiety and depression, psychosis, seizures, and suicidal behavior, where they do acknowledge that long COVID can do these things. But as we synthesized in the last video, in part 1, COVID can directly cause brain damage. And the brain damage caused by this COVID infection can then result in these types of issues. So yes, we can definitively say that the uptick in all of these things can be due to the virus. And that in fact, your 31-day stay-at-home order did not cause these things. Furthermore, you're implying that 31 days is causing long-term effects of these things 3 years later. That's just not true. Also, I'm not sure where this 54-day number is coming from. When I look at all the states, the median number is 41 days. Now we're getting to the unethical bit, the part that would go against Nuremberg laws and unethical experimentation of human beings, which is how we definitively know that there were no scientists, doctors, researchers, or ethicists on this committee. Because in their section on the use of masks and social distancing, on page 24, they call for a randomized control trial as to whether masking is effective at mitigating COVID spread and COVID infection. Particularly, they want to do one in children, where they say, create a control group, define endpoints in advance, limit the time period of the study, account for as many external variables as possible, and ultimately we would be able to see what the data have to say. So why not conduct one? 1. The evidence in question on whether masks work is not in question. Much like climate change, 99% of scientists agree. We have good studies on masking and exercise, on the filtration efficiency of different masks, on how important mask fit is, where they looked at blood levels of certain metals from people that work with them, and these metals would become very fine particulates that would be as small as the COVID virus. We even have great studies on face masks and beard length, in addition to practices you can use to make sure that your beard is snug against your face by using an elastic band to tie around your head, so that you can keep your really long beard without affecting the filtration efficiency of the mask. So to address the first point, the efficacy of masks is not a point of contention. We know that they work, which leads us into point number 2, the ethics of it. You are only allowed to conduct human research if there is a therapeutic benefit for the patient. So if you are doing a randomized control trial looking at the efficacy of masking, you would randomly split up all these people into even numbers of a control group, some that are doing maybe a surgical mask, an N95, a KN95, a P100, and then you would expose them all to COVID and see if they get infected, controlling the duration of them being around an infected individual, or an aerosolized dose of the virus in the air, accepting that these people are going to get sick, just so you can see that yes, masks do work. So you are sacrificing some for the many. You're saying that the people in this study, they don't really matter. That control group, that's just raw dog in the air. Thank you for your contribution. That's the unethical part. So it's not in contention, masks work. The proposal of a randomized control study to see if masks work is pointless because we already know that they do work, and there is no therapeutic benefit to just exposing people to COVID to see if masks work or not. Additionally, you're suggesting to do this in children, and children cannot consent because they cannot fully understand the implications of getting infected with the disease, or to understand what the benefits of the research are. Next, let's think about these studies that you're referencing. So the CDC did a great clip study where they had 2 stylists that were exposed to COVID and 139 clientele that they had seen that day. There was 2-way masking and nobody else got sick, showing that masks work. This is an example of a quick ethical study. You found 2 people that were infected with COVID that you did not give them COVID, they just got it. They saw clientele, so they knew all these people that they came into contact with. There was the controlled setting of the barbershop, and no one got sick. Ergo, masks work. While it is not top-tier science, and there were good arguments in here in terms of PCR testing of the 139 individuals and the potential for asymptomatic transmission, it is a great example of taking living data and extracting useful information out of it without doing anything to inhumanely experiment on people. Next, they reference an MMWR study, which is apparently the CDC journal that they self-publish, and I actually found this paper, where the grand jury just really shows here in these sentences that they don't understand the science. So let's show what actually happened and then what they think happened. This is a quick analysis of Kansas that looked at COVID cases between June 1st and August 23rd of 2020 on counties that naturally adhered to mask mandates and those that chose not to adhere to mask mandates and eliminate them. Where in Kansas there's 105 counties, 81 chose not to do the mask mandates, and 24 counties chose to keep doing the mandates. Where the 7-day rolling average of new daily cases per 100,000 people decreased in the ones that had the mask mandate, but continued to increase in the ones that did not have the mask mandate, where they show before the executive order, during when the executive order was implemented, and then the time after the executive order. So prior to the institution of the executive order, the cases increased dramatically in the masked counties and increase only slightly in the non-mandated counties for masking. So this right here is our start point. This is essentially time zero of when the mask mandate started. So this is our start number. And after the executive order, this number goes down. It goes from 333 to 310. While for the non-masking counties, it went from 59 to 118. So in masking counties between July and August, cases decreased by about 10%, while cases almost doubled in the non-masking counties over the same time period, despite there being higher numbers of infected people at the beginning of the order, where the grand jury acknowledges the first point, but because the absolute numbers of non-mask counties was never higher than the masking counties, they think, oh, that makes the data suspect. When in fact it's showing that when a higher number of people are infected and there's widespread masking, you can decrease case levels, but when you have even a small number of people that are infected with COVID and you don't have masking, this will easily double rapidly. Just say you don't understand the paper. And even more wildly out of left field, what they write actually goes against the premise of everything they tried to lay out above, where they actually call for more stringent lockdown measures, where they say effectively lockdowns traded the immediate welfare of a smaller, affluent, well-represented group of older Americans who could afford to stay at home for the longer-term welfare of a larger, less affluent, poorly represented group of children, teens, 20, 30, and 40-somethings who could not. Where they suggest what should have happened would be mandating large-scale, extended periods of quarantine for everyone, which is where they're humorously calling it for more stringent lockdowns. So I gotta say, Florida, I really put the L in Florida on this one.